Nestled within a picturesque landscape filled with manicured lawns and charming cul-de-sacs lies our neighborhood, a community that prides itself on its quaint aesthetic and strict adherence to the rules of the Homeowners Association, HOA. The air here is often filled with the scent of freshly cut grass and blooming flowers, as residents take great care in presenting their properties in the best light possible. Children ride their bicycles along the paved paths, while families enjoy weekend barbecues under the clear blue skies. However, beneath this serene exterior lurks an undercurrent of tension generated by the HOA's stringent regulations. Residents have come to know that every blade of grass must be precisely trimmed, every exterior paint color approved, and any modifications to homes subjected to a rigorous review. While some appreciate these guidelines for maintaining property values and aesthetic consistency, others feel stifled by what they see as overly controlling measures. Amid this backdrop lives Karen, a self-appointed guardian of our neighborhood's unwritten social order. With her oversized sunglasses framing a serious expression that seldom softens, she embodies the archetypical HOA enforcer. Known for her penchant for scrutinizing behavior and enforcing rules with an iron fist, Karen has become synonymous with disputes over seemingly trivial issues, from mailbox heights to landscaping choices. It's this environment, rich in both charm and conflict, that creates fertile ground for drama to unfold. Residents often whisper about Karen's antics over evening cocktails or at community gatherings, sharing bemused glances as her latest quests for order emerge. Yet, many find themselves torn between adhering to HOA regulations and defending personal freedoms. It's an unwritten rule: challenge Karen at your own peril. Little do we know that soon enough, one ordinary day would ignite a confrontation involving unacceptable demands and consequences no one anticipated, starting with her audacious request for keys to my backyard as a shortcut through my property. In this neighborhood, where the lines between neighborly civility and personal autonomy often blur, I stand as a proud homeowner who values my privacy and the sanctuary of my backyard. My name is Alex, and like many, I've invested not just money, but heart into my home. I've always believed that a home should reflect one's personality, filled with laughter, family gatherings, and the occasional solo retreat with a good book. My backyard, complete with vibrant flowers and an inviting patio, serves as a personal oasis where I can escape the meticulous demands of HOA life. Contrasting sharply with my laid-back approach to homeownership is Karen, a figure who has come to represent the HOA's uncompromising spirit. With her perfectly coiffed hair and an insatiable desire for control, she embodies the essence of entitlement. Karen thrives on enforcing rules and maintaining an image of order in our community, even if it means overstepping boundaries. For her, every minor infraction is a cause for concern. A crooked lawn ornament or an ill-positioned flower pot can spark her infamous crusades. Her motivations are rooted in a deep-seated need for validation through authority. She often boasts about her successes in enforcing compliance to anyone who will listen. While some neighbors chuckle at her antics, others roll their eyes or stay silently fearful of her scrutiny. Karen's presence looms large, casting a shadow over community interactions. As the days pass, the tension between us escalates. My commitment to preserving my space clashes with her conviction that everyone should adhere to her vision of neighborhood perfection. This clash of ideals creates an electric atmosphere filled with potential for conflict, especially as Karen becomes increasingly bold in her demands. Little did either of us know that our differing views on respect and ownership would soon collide spectacularly, beginning with her audacious request for keys to my backyard. It was an ordinary Tuesday evening when everything changed. I was out on my patio, sipping iced tea and appreciating the tranquility of my backyard adorned with blooming azaleas and the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze. Suddenly, Karen appeared at my gate, her figure taking shape against the fading sunlight, casting a long shadow that seemed to amplify the tension already gnawing at my routine. "Alex," she called out, her voice laced with the familiar mix of authority and urgency that always set my teeth on edge. I put down my drink and braced myself for yet another interaction that would likely test my patience. As she approached, a determined look in her eyes revealed that this wasn't just a casual chat. Standing there with her arms crossed and looking quite self-assured, Karen made her request. "I need to talk to you about something important," she began, clearing her throat for emphasis. "You see, I've noticed that a lot of neighbors have been expressing concern over the traffic on our main road, especially those who walk their dogs or push strollers." Her tone adopted a new seriousness as she continued. "To help with this issue, I think it would be best if I had keys to your backyard gate." Confused, I blinked at her. "Keys? To my backyard?" The surprise in my voice was palpable, but she forged on like it was the most natural request in the world. "Right. If I could take a shortcut through your yard when walking from one end of the neighborhood to another, it would alleviate some congestion on the street," she explained matter-of-factly. As numbers popped into my head, security breaches, privacy infringements, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Karen, I managed to say cautiously yet firmly. That's not going to happen. My refusal hung in the air like an unresolved chord in music. Anna's eyes narrowed slightly as disbelief etched across her face. Clearly, she expected compliance rather than opposition. What transpired next would send shockwaves through our quiet lives and lead us down an unexpected path filled with escalating tensions. As I stood there, the weight of Karen's request sank in, and my mind raced with reasons for my refusal. It wasn't merely about the keys, it was about boundaries. My backyard was more than just a patch of land, it was my sanctuary, a personal refuge where I could unwind after long days and enjoy moments of solitude surrounded by nature. The thought of someone having unrestricted access to that space felt like an invasion, a violation of the sanctuary I had meticulously cultivated. I glanced around my backyard, taking in the vibrant flowers and the cozy seating area where I spent countless evenings relaxing with a book or enjoying barbecues with friends. Each inch of that space held memories, laughter, and a sense of peace that I cherished. Allowing Karen, or anyone else, for that matter, to bypass my privacy with a simple set of keys felt wrong on a fundamental level. I believed that everyone should have the right to enjoy their property without unnecessary intrusion. Furthermore, opening up my backyard to neighborhood foot traffic posed security risks that I simply couldn't overlook. What if someone wandered into my yard? What if they inadvertently left the gate open? The mere idea made me uneasy. As someone who had worked hard to create this little oasis, the possibility of strangers tramping through felt unsettling. In addition, there was an underlying principle at stake: respect for personal space. If I allowed Karen this access, what would stop her from making further demands in the future? Setting this precedent would only invite more overreach from her and erode the boundaries that are crucial to maintaining harmony in our community. Karen, I stated firmly but with measured calm, I think it's important for everyone to respect each other's privacy and properties. Her expression shifted as she processed my response, an amalgamation of disbelief and irritation flickered in her eyes. My refusal not only challenged her authority but also highlighted the growing rift between our contrasting values in this tightly knit neighborhood. Karen's reaction to my refusal was immediate and intense. Her posture stiffened, and the confidence she exuded moments earlier morphed into disbelief, as if I had just committed an unthinkable offense. The air between us thickened, palpable with her indignation. "You have to understand," she began, her tone shifting from casual authority to something more demanding. "This is about the community's well-being. If you care about your neighbors, you'd want to help us." I could feel her entitlement rising to the surface, the way someone expects compliance without question. This wasn't just a simple request anymore, it became a twisted sense of duty she believed I was somehow obliged to fulfill. I stood my ground, maintaining my composure despite the frustration boiling within me. "Karen," I replied slowly, emphasizing every word, "protecting my privacy is not just about me, it's vital for everyone in our neighborhood. Respecting boundaries matters." But rather than absorb my words, she escalated the situation further. "You'll regret this," she snapped, her eyes narrowing as if she was already plotting her next move. Without missing a beat, Karen retreated from my yard with a storm brewing in her expression. I watched in disbelief as she pulled out her phone. Moments later, I noticed her pacing near her front porch while talking animatedly. My heart sank as it became clear she had chosen to involve law enforcement. The thought made me shiver. Escalating this to the level of calling the police felt deeply irrational yet quintessentially Karen. Soon enough, I saw flashing lights in the distance, piercing through the soft evening glow like a beacon of tension. What had started as a personal conflict over boundaries had turned into something much larger, an entire neighborhood ordeal interwoven with unnecessary drama. As I awaited the arrival of the officers, I felt a mix of anger and concern, not just for my own situation but for how this would ripple through our typically tight-knit community. The stage was set for a showdown that would test not only my patience but the very essence of what it meant to coexist among neighbors. As the flashing lights of the squad car approached, I felt a surge of anxiety mixed with anger. Karen, having hung up her phone after calling the police, stood on her porch with an air of triumph, as if she had orchestrated a masterstroke in asserting her dominance. When the officers stepped out of their vehicle, I could see them scanning the area, and I knew that the situation had escalated beyond reason. I watched as Karen greeted the officers with exaggerated concern, her voice dripping with sincerity. "Thank you for coming so quickly," she said, gesturing dramatically toward my home. "I was just trying to be a good neighbor and find a solution to our traffic issues when he refused to give me access to his backyard." The way she framed her narrative made it sound as though I were an unreasonable villain for wanting to maintain my privacy. As the officers turned their attention toward me, I felt the weight of their scrutiny. I took a deep breath and prepared to articulate my side of the story calmly. "I'm Alex," I introduced myself, trying to present a composed facade despite my rising frustration. "Karen asked for keys to my backyard so she could cut through it without considering my privacy or property rights." The two officers exchanged looks, clearly assessing the drama unfolding before them. Karen continued to play her role with gusto, emphasizing how community cohesion was key while hinting that my refusal was selfish. "All I did was make a simple request," she insisted, her voice rising slightly as if seeking validation from the authorities. I felt increasingly sidelined as her description painted me as an obstructionist rather than someone merely defending personal boundaries. "This isn't about disliking my neighbors or causing trouble," I interjected, striving for clarity. "It's about respecting each other's spaces." Yet I could sense that some of the officers were swayed by Karen's theatrics as they began taking notes. The conflict had now taken on a life of its own, morphing from a dispute between neighbors into an authoritative intervention. In this moment, I realized just how pivotal this standoff would be, not only for my own peace but also for our community's sense of respect and understanding in navigating shared spaces amidst differing values. The moment the police arrived, tension hung heavy in the air, and I could feel my heart racing as I stood on my own property, an uneasy mix of defiance and vulnerability coiling in my chest. The officers stepped out of their squad car, their presence authoritative yet sterile, scrutinizing both Karen and me as though they were piecing together a puzzle filled with misunderstandings. I watched as Karen immediately approached them with an exaggerated wave, her tone shifting seamlessly to that of a concerned citizen. "Thank you for coming," she exclaimed, gesturing dramatically toward my home, her voice dripping with sincerity. "This man refuses to let me use his backyard as a shortcut for our neighborhood's sake. Can you believe it?" She painted herself not just as a victim but as a heroic figure trying to unite our community against a selfish neighbor. As the officers listened, I felt a surge of frustration welling up inside. How had we moved from a simple disagreement about personal boundaries to portraying me as some tyrant? I took a deep breath and tried to remain calm. After all, I wanted to make my case clearly. "I'm just trying to protect my privacy," I asserted, hoping my voice would cut through the mounting tension. "This isn't about not caring for neighbors, it's about respecting my home." However, one of the officers was already taking notes, glancing at Karen as if her every word was gospel. The look in her eyes showcased triumph, even when she didn't deserve it, while I felt like I was sinking deeper into the role of an unreasonable antagonist. My frustration began morphing into disbelief. I knew this dispute was trivial on its face but now felt enormous and unfair. As they continued their inquiry, the misunderstanding cast me in a light starkly different from who I truly was. It became evident that this wasn't just about keys or shortcuts anymore. Instead, it was an unsettling examination of how community dynamics could spiral out of control based on differing perceptions. All I wanted was to protect my sanctuary, yet here I stood before law enforcement, struggling against Karen's narrative that portrayed me as the bad guy in a farcical drama gone wrong. As the officers continued their line of questioning, I took a moment to gather my thoughts, realizing that the time had come for me to clarify the situation. "Look," I began, taking a deep breath to steady my nerves. "I think there's been a misunderstanding." I glanced at the officers before focusing on Karen, who stood nearby visibly pleased with her narrative. "I believe in upholding the rules set by our homeowners association," I explained, choosing my words carefully. "Our neighborhood has specific guidelines about property boundaries and respect for personal space. These rules are designed to maintain the beauty and harmony that drew us all here, and they are not just arbitrary restrictions." I could feel the officers listening more intently now, their posture shifting as I provided context. Karen approached me requesting keys to my backyard so she could take a shortcut. While I appreciate her concerns about traffic, it's important to understand that my backyard is my private space. Allowing anyone unrestricted access could lead to potential problems, not only for me but for everyone who values their privacy. I noticed one officer nodding slightly, his demeanor softening as I continued. "I've worked hard to make my home a comfortable place for myself and my family, just like everyone else here. This isn't about being difficult, it's about setting a precedent where we can all agree on respecting each other's properties and boundaries." With every word, I could see Karen's expression shift from triumph to irritation as I laid out my reasoning. Still pushing back, she tried to interject, but I held up a hand. "I'm not trying to play the bad guy here. This is about maintaining mutual respect amongst neighbors." The officers exchanged glances as they processed my explanation, seeming more and more intrigued by my perspective. In sharing the context of HOA rules and the importance of courteous neighborly interactions, I felt some hope that maybe this misunderstanding could be cleared up after all. Perhaps it wasn't going to be so straightforward, but I was willing to stand firm for what I believed in, a sense of fairness and respect for personal privacy in our community battles. As the situation developed, curious neighbors began to gather outside, drawn by the commotion and the flashing lights of the police car. Whispers circulated among them, and it quickly became clear that opinions were divided. Some residents sided with Karen, believing that her request was a reasonable solution to alleviate neighborhood traffic concerns. "She's just trying to keep our streets safe for kids and pets," one neighbor murmured to another, nodding toward Karen, who stood with arms crossed, exuding defiance. Meanwhile, others were more sympathetic to my plight. A few neighbors who knew me approached cautiously, expressing their support. "I get it, Alex. Your backyard is your space, and you shouldn't have to give it up just because someone else wants a shortcut," one neighbor said quietly. Their reassurance instilled a sense of solidarity in me amidst the growing tension. However, it was not long before Karen's supporters began to voice their opinions more loudly. "If we all just cooperated," another resident argued, "we could make this neighborhood function better for everyone." The assertion hung heavily in the air, and I could feel the weight of expectations pressing down on me, as if my refusal was betraying some unwritten code of communal living. Yet as I glanced at the officers attending to the unfolding situation, I noticed an officer speaking discreetly to a few concerned neighbors who had come closer to understand what was happening. He made a point to explain the importance of civil liberties and respecting property rights, which seemed to resonate with those who felt uneasy about Karen's demands. Amidst the varying viewpoints, it became evident that this incident had opened wider discussions about personal rights versus community needs. This conflict highlighted the thin line between neighborly cooperation and individual autonomy, a topic previously buried beneath our idealized suburban facade. As Karen continued to project anger and insistence, I found myself realizing that this disagreement was more than just about keys to a backyard. It was a microcosm of our community's struggle with autonomy and conformity. In this pivotal moment, the diverse reactions from my neighbors provided both comfort and clarity amid the chaos, reminding me that there were still voices in favor of maintaining personal boundaries in our shared spaces. As the dust settled from the confrontation, I found myself reflecting on the outcome of this unexpected ordeal. After a thorough discussion with the officers, it became clear that they understood my perspective and reinforced the importance of respecting personal property rights. While they encouraged neighborly cooperation, they also emphasized that each homeowner has the right to maintain their boundaries without undue pressure. In the days following the incident, a shift occurred in our community's dynamics. Neighbors who had previously stayed silent began to engage in conversations about privacy and respect. Many expressed their relief at seeing law enforcement support individual rights, while others voiced concerns about Karen's approach to community issues. This dialogue sparked a renewed sense of awareness around the delicate balance between community needs and personal space. Karen herself seemed somewhat chastened by the events, her usual bravado diminished as residents began openly discussing their own experiences with her demands. Several neighbors approached me to express solidarity and support, reinforcing my belief that I was not alone in valuing my privacy. "We all have our spaces," one neighbor told me during a casual gathering, "and we need to respect that." This situation served as a crucial lesson for everyone involved. For me, it highlighted the importance of standing firm in one's values while advocating for respectful communication. It also opened my eyes to how easily misunderstandings can escalate when assumptions are made without context. For Karen, perhaps this experience prompted a moment of reflection on her approach to asserting authority within our neighborhood. The fallout from her demands revealed that entitlement could easily backfire when met with resistance grounded in reason and personal rights. Ultimately, our HOA community emerged from this conflict with a deeper understanding of boundaries. We learned that while cooperation is essential for harmony, it should never come at the cost of individual autonomy. As I looked out at my backyard once again, my personal sanctuary, I felt a renewed sense of determination to protect not only my space but also advocate for mutual respect among neighbors in our tightly woven community fabric. In reflecting on the events that transpired within our neighborhood, it becomes clear that entitlement can easily disrupt the fabric of community life. Karen's initial demand for keys to my backyard seemed innocuous at first glance, yet it opened the door to critical discussions about individual rights and the often tangled pathways of neighborly expectations. In a world where homes are closely knit together, each action reverberates through the entire community, and the dynamics of entitlement can transform minor disagreements into larger conflicts. This incident illustrated how a sense of entitlement, whether perceived or genuine, can lead to misunderstandings that fracture relationships and foster divisions among neighbors. Karen's insistence that her request was reasonable for the greater good overshadowed the fundamental respect each homeowner is owed. It serves as a reminder that what one person sees as a minor adjustment can touch upon deeper values held by another, highlighting the importance of clear communication. Moreover, this struggle underscores how vital respectful relations are in suburban settings. Our peace as a community hinges not just on shared amenities or collective efforts but equally on honoring each other's personal spaces and voices. As we navigated the aftermath, people voiced their thoughts about balancing communal cooperation with individual desires, creating an atmosphere ripe for renewed connections and mutual understanding. The lessons learned extend beyond just my own situation. They challenge all residents to consider how we engage with our neighbors moving forward. How do we advocate for our needs without imposing upon others? How do we create an environment where everyone feels comfortable expressing their concerns while fostering inclusivity? Ultimately, this experience may serve as a catalyst for change, a push towards greater respect and dialogue among neighbors in our HOA community. It reminds us that respectful relationships should underpin any collective living situation, allowing us all to coexist harmoniously while valuing both personal boundaries and community needs. In reshaping our approach together, perhaps we can cultivate a community defined not by control but by kindness and understanding, a place where each person's sanctuary is cherished just as much as shared spaces are enjoyed.